Hi, welcome to a Curve tutorial video. My name is Natan Cohen. I'm the head of customer success here at Curve. And in this video, we're going to be covering how to toggle feature visibility for the dashboard widget. So this is a video to watch if you want to learn how you can toggle the various UI UX components of the dashboard widget on and off at a granular level. So for example, we're going to be covering some of the more common types of customization requests that we see, toggling the filter panel on and off, controlling which export types different charts can support. Let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is familiarize ourselves with the customization object for the dashboard widget. So I've opened up the partner portal documentation for this object, and it's important just to go over how this property works. There are two things to point out. The first is that ultimately what you're doing is you're defining a set of whitelists or blacklists, right? We're either defining UI UX controls that we want to keep, implying that any others of the type we want to hide, or vice versa, where we want to remove certain items and then implying that anything left in that area should also be kept, right? So we have this remove property. We have a keep property. They both take an array of strings that are comma delimited. And then you can apply it either globally, right? So remove and keep can sit at the root level of customization, or you can really get down into the sub-modules, right? The dashboard widget being a module itself. And then you can apply it to one of these other sub-modules: list, design, preview, and end user. So let's take a look at what each of these four submodules for the dashboard are, so that you know where you're applying the feature toggling. So let's start by flipping back over to Curve Composer, going to the dashboard widget. All right, so here we are with the dashboard widget. It's not embedded. We are in Curve Composer, but effectively this is the UI that you would see starting right here next to the menus, right? So this is the list view of the dashboard widget. This is what the user sees if you don't pass a specific dashboard ID property. In other words, you're not loading a specific dashboard. They'll land here on the list page. By default, it's a card layout. You could control the default view so that it comes and lands on the table layout, for example. But this is the list view. And if we dive into one of these dashboards, we are in what's called design view. Okay, so the builder mode is the design view. There's also preview mode. If you click preview, now all of your filter controls become usable. You can test your drill actions, and that's what preview mode is for. But there are certain functions that are not in preview mode, like testing exports, as well as testing end user customization. To really test all of the controls as if an end user were seeing it, you would go to end user view by clicking one-click application. Okay, this is the end user view. So now we're going to go and figure out how we can toggle the filter panel, which is this flyout right here. We're going to toggle the filter panel off for both the end user view and the preview. So we're going to flip back over to our dashboard customization page. We're going to be defining a customization object, and we're going to be taking the views property, and we're going to be turning off the filter panel in preview mode as well as end user mode. So I'm going to look for the right property to turn off. Okay, filter panel. All right, and here it is. It's called filter panel. So if I just reference this, and in fact you saw it right here in this example, right? We can literally just copy and paste this block here and put it into our code. So I'm going to go over to Visual Studio Code, and we're going to input the customization object to disable the filter panel in both preview mode as well as end user mode. Here we are in Visual Studio Code, and this is my front-end JavaScript embed code where I already have the dashboard widget embedded, and I'm just going to add the customization object here. And we know within the customization object we have to define the views property. And then within that we have to define the submodule that we want to control. All right, and that's going to be preview. All right, so within that, we're going to define the remove property. And remember, this takes an array of comma delimited strings. What we're interested in removing is the filter panel. So we just need to pass the filter panel string just like that. And I'm going to go and give this a test. So to test this, I'm going to reload my dashboard widget. And I'm going to go into one of my dashboards. Okay, now remember, the filter panel is here because we're in design mode. But if I go to preview mode, notice that the filter panel is not there, so it did work. Now what I'm going to do is go back to Visual Studio Code and disable the filter panel from the end user view. So here we are back in Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to define one more view called end user. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy and paste the remove property, and I'm going to put it under the end user view. Now to test this, I'm going to put back the dashboard ID property so that we can go direct to that dashboard in end user personalization mode. So let's go back and give it a test. Here we are back in the browser. I'm going to refresh this, and this time it should load the dashboard directly. And it did. And notice that the filter panel is not available. So that's one of the most common things that you might want to do with the dashboard customization. The other thing we might want to do is control the export actions. And what I'm going to do first is globally disable the JPEG export option. I'm going to disable it from all views in the dashboard widget. Maybe I don't want my end user ever really exporting to an image. The next thing I might do is restrict downloads for the metrics. So maybe exports are not useful at all for metric charts. So we're going to do those two examples. So let's go back to our documentation to see how we do that. So let's go over to the customization object documentation, and let's see how we're going to hide the JPEG option from all of the views in the dashboard widget where we have the download option. So that's the preview mode, the preview view, the end user view, as well as the design view. And first, if we look for JPG, we'll find the property that we're interested in. Okay, this is a header option menu, but it's actually inside a submodule called the chart panel. Okay, so if we want to see how we would use the submodule, right, if we go back up to our full example here, we can take the submodule here and just copy this, and then go back to Visual Studio Code and add this submodule in all three views. So I'm going to go back to Visual Studio Code, and we'll see how to do this. So here we are in Visual Studio Code, and I need to define the submodule for the chart so that I can hide the JPEG download option. I need to do this everywhere the download options are available, and that's preview mode, end user mode, as well as design mode. So I'm going to go ahead and add the design mode here. All right, and now I'm going to paste the code that I copied from the documentation. And I'm going to get this formatted and change the property from keep to remove, and I'm going to change PDF to JPEG. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and I just added some double quotes around my properties. I changed the keep property to remove, and I put in my chart JPEG download option. So now I'm going to copy this entire submodule property here, and I'm going to add it to the preview mode, and I'm going to add it to the end user mode. Now we're going to go and give it a test in the browser. So here we are back in the browser. Let's give it a test in end user mode first. All right, and my download option should now be excluding JPEG, and it looks like it is. All right, let's give it another test, reloading in design mode and then checking preview mode to make sure it's also restricted there as well. Okay, so here we are in design mode. And if I go to the download options, I don't see the JPEG download option there. And if I go to preview mode, I don't see download options here regardless. So finally, let's figure out how to keep download options for all of my charts that are not metrics, right? Not the charts that produce one value. And let's figure out how to remove the downloads only for metric type charts. So let's go back to the customization documentation. And this is where we're going to use a feature called customization conditionals. And this is what it looks like. So we're going to define it within a submodule, in this case the chart panel, because we want to control download options, and we have to be within the chart panel submodule to do that. The conditional takes a field, an operator, and a value. Now, the field is always category, and the category is always referring to the category of charts, and there are 3 categories of charts in Curve, which you might already be familiar with. We have metric charts that refer to indicator, dial, and bullet bar gauge charts. Those are the 3 types of charts that return a single aggregate metric. The other type of chart is just simply called a chart, and that's any other type of chart or visualization you can build that's not one of the 3 metric charts. And the third type of categorical chart is called a summary chart, which you can see if you go to a data set, you click the Analyze tab, and you click on the Summary view. You basically get a little panel with a chart that summarizes the values or provides analytics on a single column of data. So those are summary charts. So we're going to define a conditional where category equals metric, and then we're going to remove all download options, and we're going to do that using a wildcard. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code, copy this particular block here, and see how we use it. We're back in Visual Studio Code, and we want to find the end user view, the chart panel submodule, and we're already removing the JPEG download. Now we're going to add a conditional, and we're going to remove all the chart options. So the way to do this is to replace that last subproperty with a star, and we're going to change keep to remove. All right, now I'm going to go format these properties with double quotes, and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back, and I have formatted my properties with double quotes. Everything is now indented to the right level so you can see it clearly. Within the chart sub-panel for the end user view, I am removing the JPEG export from all charts. And if a chart is of type metric, then I am going to remove all chart download options. Let's go and give this a test in the browser. Here we are back in the browser, and we're going to give this another test. So we're loading a specific dashboard. in end user mode. And my filter panel is gone, and my JPEG option is removed from all charts, and I have my indicator chart and no download options exactly as I wanted. So in this tutorial video, you learned how to use the customization property to control features at a granular level for the dashboard widget. We showed you how to completely hide the filter panel from the different views of the dashboard widget, and we learned how to apply granular toggling of download options for different types of charts. So we hope you found this useful, and thank you for watching.